Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 157. Yes, it's week 157. So Adam and I and Robert Fish's backside, we're in an all-day session with our coach, Robert Fish. And so we had to break out so that we could do that. But that's he's the first guy to go pro in mountain bike racing at age 40. He's the first guy to go pro at age 50. Anyway, that is what's going on. So Wilton Rogers is with us today. We are going to go deep into RPA. And if you don't know what RPA is, you will find out in a little bit. But before we do that, so Jack or Adam, current events, anything that you guys feel like is topical that this audience needs to be knowing about before we go into RPA?
Yeah, again, it just on the topic itself here in a second, but just the House did just pass its budget resolution or budget bill, from what I understand, and it has some cuts associated with it. I haven't read it, but I heard one of the cuts is, hey, you got to roll back those 87,000 IRS agents. It was sort of a moot point because they were never going to frickin' find them anyway. So I guess that means that I'm not picking on the bill positively or negatively. Is holding, spending hostage. Like, you can make a case for hostage taking. You can make a case against hostage taking. All I'm saying is what I did like to hear was, both sides beginning to acknowledge that deficit spending is getting out of control. and we're just debating the mechanics of how do we have a dialogue about it. So that seems generally positive. I mean, I was watching, don't jump into Gary, but I was watching CNN, and the panel, the guy they were interviewing was Matt Gaetz, and I'm like, oh Jesus, how's this gonna go? And it, shockingly well.
Of course.
So I was like, I don't think you can really say, of course, like that with a straight face. So I'm sorry, dude. That is a breaking point for me. So in terms of like his acknowledgement of, rampant spending has been a problem on both sides of the aisle. So that was generally positive. And again, it just for our business owner clients, I mean, look, I mean, there probably will only end up being one answer, whether, and it's just messaging, which is, tax rates going up. So it's just be prepared. So it's either going to be the Democratic version of tax rates going up, which means the rate actually does go up, or the Republican version of rates going up, which is called silently take stuff away that used to be there, but either way, that's probably the likely outcome. So that was one thing. And I'm also really excited about the discussion that we're going to have today with Wilton, which is, all about driving efficiencies, especially because, the number one topic that we're processing here at BGW, just like everybody else is out there, which is, how do you do more with less people? And I'll just share a funny story before I shut up. So Jack, I know you guys probably having your own challenges with people. Hopefully this hasn't happened to you, but we got to play in Beta Alpha Psi, which is the accounting fraternity. So accounting professional fraternity is Beta Alpha Psi. So we got to play in a tournament at App State recently. It's just our way of, hey, let's get to know some of the future candidates for BGW. So observation number one, more players from firms than Beta Alpha Psi members by a factor of 2 to 1.
Wow. So
that's just observation number one. 2 people trying to recruit for every 1 recruit, which meant that my team didn't even get a student, to play with. So we got paired up with two players from they're called Forbes now, but they're the old Dixon Hughes Goodman, and they were good guys, man. I really enjoyed playing with them. But they were having the same, like, for the first time ever this last year, we had people that accepted offers with BGW and then reneged, like literally sent in the written acceptance letter and then said, by the way, I was just kidding. I took another job instead. Like, unheard of, it was out there. And we're like, God, man, like, was it something I said? What happened? Dixon Hughes Goodman / Forbes is like the 10th biggest accounting firm in the country. It happened to them too. I'm like, good Lord, that's crazy. But at the same time, so validating, which is just, more the reason that it's like, Wilton, where do I sign up the computers? Because you know what they can't do? Quit and renege. As long as I don't create Battlestar Galactica, I should be in pretty good shape around here.
And I'll say that, well, first of all, yes, we are having the same recruiting issues. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, you'll get back to us, and then it doesn't happen. And we're like, what's going on? Well, I'm not even sure if I want to leave the firm that I'm at. So, we feel like we're kind of been used and abused as just to see what was out there. The other is, yeah, I mean, it's as far as, it was that I felt compelled because of all this stuff about artificial intelligence and about being replaced. I felt compelled to tell my paralegals and other staff members that NFW not happening anytime soon for you. Your jobs are secure because, not ready to have Battlestar Galactica in my as when I'm alive, kind of thing. So all good with that. And then the last thing is I'm very excited for the prospect of Disney World relocating to South Carolina, because apparently Nikki Haley is gonna maybe try to facilitate that. So very excited about that.
Site called Carowinds. Just keep on expanding on that, baby.
Yeah, it'll be North and South Carolina.
That's right.
It's right on the line. It's pretty close.
That's right.
Oh, man. All right. Well, before we launch in, so we've got Wilton Rogers III joining us. So Wilton is the CEO of Simply Automate, and we got to know each other because we're in a LinkedIn kind of a mastermind group together. And I've seen what he's been posting. Follow him and his company, Simply Automate, if you haven't. But that is, again, the power of LinkedIn. And I also did experience the power of when LinkedIn goes bad. I got notice from LifeLock at 4:47 a.m. a couple days ago. I was cut out. I was locked out, and it was out for about, I don't know, until about 11 o'clock in the morning. I've got other friends that have still been locked out since they went down that same day, which is awful. But when LinkedIn is playing nice and you're playing nice with it, it's a great place to meet great people and have wonderful discussions on really important topics. So that's why we brought in Wilton after last week when we had AI and Chat GPT as kind of the discussion point with Atul, who is a client of ours, runs a big AI company working with a lot of enterprise stuff. Like, we thought, hey, let's bring it down and work with smaller businesses and middle market businesses. What can RPA do for us? Because we've talked with Wilton. I know that we want to go deeper with them on exploring how we can remove some repetitive processes and free up some people from the mundane so that we can use their brain power a little bit more. So before we launch into that, I'm going to hit you guys with a poll. Just two questions. And the first question is your company currently using RPA? Yes, no. What's RPA? So if you would go ahead and enter into that. I've got 0 of 14 people participating. So you guys hit those buttons if you would. The second question is, if not using RPA currently, why? It's either too expensive, too long to implement, or we still haven't started using computers. So here we go. So we got some people wondering what in the world RPA is. we still have some people that haven't started using computers, man. That they're dialing in with Lily Tomlin on the phone, evidently. So we've got 1 of 7 so far. Give you a couple more seconds. So we got about 50% of the people on here that have participated. If you haven't voted, please do, because I'm really interested into like, what's your thought? And I'll bet you Papa Joe is one of these that says, I haven't started using computers, even though his I'm just busting your chops if you're on Papa Joe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to launch it, share results. So can you guys see this, Wilton? And all right, so
Sure can.
1 of 7 that answered is using RPA. 3 wondered, what the heck is it? Bias is it's too expensive, and people that still have to figure out what a computer is. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Wilton, what we would love to do is have you give a little bit of an overview about what Simply Automate is. And because we've got an audience that kind of spans the gamut, typically smaller businesses up to middle market, maybe a couple 100 million and below. Think of that, and probably sweet spots in the 5 to 20 million range. That's probably what's going on here. Again, across service as well as manufacturing and that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and some practical applications on how you're using this, but let's deal with what is it and the biases of, oh, it's too expensive, because those were a couple of the biases, right, that came out of the gate, or it's going to take too long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's been very interesting just hearing you guys talk for this time right here, and just give you a little to sort of back up a little bit, that we get a better understanding of the journey and why we're this is like a perfect fit for where we build our model is basically your audience. It's for your audience, and the reason why is because I've been an serial entrepreneur, so knowing how to build processes is something that you do. You just do it, and you build them, and you sort of have people run those processes. Okay, now you do this, now you do this. We have the software to support you to do this, put it in there. So you sort of build those, as you're building a company, you build those processes, and you just continue running them. I did that for 30 plus years, sort of giving my age away now, but did that for a while. In different industries for different companies as an entrepreneur, but also as executive office position or director position. So learning from organizations, you learn how to do those processes. Well, in 2017, I was sort of like, okay, I'm sold my company. I was just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And RPA came across this company, was starting up startup working in the RPA industry, and they needed someone to do their sales and marketing. So when I looked into it, when I realized what it was doing, I was like, wow, this can really, this is like a game changer for any business. Like, if you have rule-based tasks, you can be automated. And I knew that. I was like, okay, well, this is a game changer, because I was thinking about all the things that I used to do. I'm like, well, I could have done that. That would have saved me tons of time there. I could have used them to help me do this. So all those things were going through my head. Long story short, I took the position, and back then it was just more, I didn't realize it was built for the enterprise world. But during that time, I was still trying to figure out, how can I bring this downstream? How can I bring it down? How can I bring it down market? And it was just too pricey. But as I was building these processes and selling it and learning how it worked, I was just really intrigued, like, oh, you can really understanding how the process, how you can build these bots. And I was just asking questions. I was that guy, the non-tech guy that asked all the tech questions. The guys are looking at me like, this guy, here he goes again with these questions. That was me all the time. So I was just like, how did you do that? What'd you do here? What'd you do that? Because I wanted to understand how I can translate that to people like me, which is most of the world. Especially if you're in the business. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And little by little, I was like, okay, well, I figured it out. Now I just got to figure out a software that can service businesses and not just the work for a software company. So the company I was working for wasn't working for a software company, Automation Anywhere and UiPath. And the Softomotive came out, which is now Microsoft Power Automate. And I was just like, okay, I had a developer that worked on UiPath say, can I use this? Can you use Softomotive and do this for a client of mine? Just a friend of mine. I was like, hey, let me do this for you. Well, you pay for the software, but I'll have it built for you for free. And I was like, and we did it. And I was like, oh, we did it. And so I brought it to the company. I was like, this is what we did. And they're like, no, we don't want to go down that path. And I was like, okay, well, I already know I can, so I'm going to do it. So dumb me is like, okay, I was like, okay, in 2019, I was like, I'm leaving, starting my own company. And I started building on that, and I started working with some people that I knew, started building for free. And I was just like, okay, this is really can work, but it's just not getting them the recognition. And the reason why is because there wasn't a lot of education involved with understanding how to use it for the small market. And our market was 150 million or lower. That was our market. And so we just started building those models. We started building, okay, build a team. We know a team, because I know people from the industry. So I started doing contract work using different software. I started bringing them in. At that time, I started building data and building educational model to help people to understand what RPA was. And so as we start growing this past year, RPA started getting a lot of recognition. A lot of, people started, that was a buzzword. RPA was a buzzword. But no one really knew how to, use RPA for their business. So everybody else thought, like you said on this, people thought it was too expensive. Not many people had implemented it. I think only one has. It's because no one really knows how to do it, but everybody needs it. So we became an educational source. So now we're trying to build our company as, come to us, we'll educate you. We'll love to do it. We have the end-to-end process, but at least we get the right information. Because RPA is such a buzz now, there's a lot of businesses getting involved with it, and they're going down the wrong funnel and taking a lot of time, taking a lot of money, doing a lot of things that they could have saved. And so we're trying to tell them to pump those brakes as well. So our company is basically a development company, educational company, and a consulting company that specializes in RPA. And the reason why I love RPA is because as a business owner, if I could automate everything, I could focus that I can just get off my all the manual process I can get off my plate. The real true vision and the power is in intelligent automation, new technology, right? So now you can spend your time focusing your clients, your employees, focusing on how to utilize all this new technology to grow that company. And when I realized that RPA could take all that away, physically, mentally, emotionally, take that stress away, I was like, okay, we're on to something. And so now we're sort of, I won't say a pioneer, but we're right there as a pioneer for the small, medium-sized enterprise, small, medium-sized business. I know it's a mouthful, but I hope that helped.
No, that's quite good. And RPA, for anybody listening, it means robotic process automation. Is that correct, Wilton?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
And why it's robotic process automation threw it off. It should be more of a business process automation, because it automates business processes. So think of it as just a business process. If it's a manual process that you're doing, it's rule-based, the RPA more than likely can automate that for you. So if it's taking you 5 minutes or taking you 5 hours, more than likely it can do it.
So give us, one of the things that I really like about what you do on LinkedIn is you're very good with using some use case studies and like problem, here's the solution in that industry. I think I've seen some stuff across a whole bunch of different industries. You've done stuff in the accounting world, which is what we're naturally interested in as well. We're using some AI and some RPA in some of our billing procedures already, but there are other manual tasks that we're still that take up time that we would like to free up some capable people to do things that are probably more meaningful to them than just doing the same forms over and over and over and over again. So if you would give us some examples, and anybody listening, feel free to hit us up in the Q&A for any questions. I'll be monitoring those. You can harass us in the chat. But if you would give us a use case and example that deals with, what kind of expense, what was the issue, what was kind of the expense, and what kind of time frame were you able to implement this in? Because again, I know my mind frame was always large corporate enterprise stuff that was very expensive, and that's kind of the world that a tool plays in. So if you could do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll go into a couple of processes, or it's one process I think everybody can wrap their heads around. But before I do that, the most important thing is when we present, because we've been doing it for a while, it's like we just go to companies, say, for manufacturing, we're big in accounting. Is probably we have more accounting and financial clients than any other industry, and manufacturing and things like that, because there's a lot of data, a lot of already built processes. But when we talk to people, we say that when they ask us for use cases, we can give them use cases, we can show them things that we've done, and it'll somewhat click with them, but they won't get a true feeling. So what we do is tell them, we ask them, tell us something that you do manually every day. It's just a bottleneck, it's a pain in your butt. It could take you 5 minutes, it could take you 2 minutes, but something you have to do almost every single day. What is that? Or every single week, what is that? They'll start finding one or two things. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be something that's just, long. It could just be something that they have to, I got to do this again. Oh, I got to do that again. Oh, I got to remember to do that again. When you find that process, then it's easy to have the conversation about, let me show you what RPA can do for you. Because it's going to be an emotional attachment. Now they're going to be able to say, okay, you took that off my plate completely. Whoa. What will that do for you if I took that off your plate completely? What will that do for you? Oh, give me time to do this, 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 and this, and this. Right? Or things that you want to pass on to somebody else. If I had an assistant, this is what I have them do. What are those things? But a use case that is very popular, that probably we always have on the board, I've never seen us have a month that we don't have it, is probably invoice processing. Invoice processing. And we have businesses that come in, or invoices that come into our clients from different vendors, and they might come in by email, they may come in through on mail, different ways, right? But long story short, they get scanned in, they're in a PDF format, in a digital format. What the bot will do, we call it a bot, we just call it the bot. The bot will do, it'll grab, let's say that all the invoices are different. It'll recognize what invoices, once you understand it, like this invoice goes to vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3. They're all separate, they look different. Once the bot recognizes what that invoice is, it knows where to go grab that information every single time. Okay, so it doesn't matter if one invoice or 1,000 invoices, it knows where to go and grab that information, whether it's the date, it's the quantity, it's the total, it's whatever the case may be. It knows, it grabs that information, and then it grabs it. It's almost like you get it, grab it, copy it, paste it, and put into their software program, into QuickBooks or whatever program they have. And then it goes down the line. And then all of a sudden, if it recognizes one, like it gets new invoice from an old vendor, but it's a new looking invoice. It'll look back, it'll grab all the information it can, because it'll recognize the date, because there'll be some what ifs. But let's say the date moved, they recognize the date. The bot will go back over there and tell to someone else, say, hey, we got all this information's in here, but we don't have this. The person look at the invoice, all the dates over here. Now the date's in there. Once that's programmed to the bot will go, and now it looks at both places, that place or that place, to see if the next time the next run comes, to make sure. So it'll mature as it goes as well. So eventually, all those those data points that you have to grab from those PDFs and put them into your system, and then send them to an email and then save it, all those different steps are all rules that you have to follow. The bot follows those rules to the T, and it goes as fast as the applications allow it to go. And if it's never done it before, It'll ask you a question, you answer it, it'll never ask you again. It'll remember it, so it'll never make a mistake. So when we say manual processes, you look at all the things that you're doing manually. What I mean by that, if you're clicking on a clipboard and on a keyboard, if you're clicking on that mouse and you're doing that over and over and over again, then those are the areas that you need to start automating it. Because once you start clicking on the mouse and stop doing all those things, then you realize how much time you can really spend behind the computer doing other things. So I hope that helped out as far as that. Now the price, you know, do you have any questions?
Now, the only other thing I was going to say is, for those who haven't bought computers yet, that means you're going to have to buy a computer, because you need to have a dedicated workstation for this. So you can still have an inexpensive computer, but it is a computer without a human, and that computer is running through its program tasks. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, they do it two ways. You know, we have some obviously that have VMs. Some of them have a laptop. They just buy a, you know, $300-$400 laptop, and they running process after process, and they have 5 or 6 processes on that laptop, and just running them over and over and over again. So yeah, that's probably the easiest way, and you can see it running. You'll be by your computer, you can see it right there running all day long. It'll tell you what it's running. It'll tell you everything, so you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's great. And then talk to us about, what kind of price ranges for, because everything's custom, I get it. But I think that's a big hurdle. Oh gosh, this is going to be tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's going to take months and months and months. You know, let's dispel some of those things. And some of the things, like you said, let's go into something that's, you know, a repetitive task right now. Let's kind of put the toe in the water. Give us some examples of like timeline, cost of entry, besides a dedicated workstation, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first the cost, you know, there's 2 ways that you can look at it. If you're going to invest in your own internal RPA, you know, department, so to say, or, you know, then you probably want to look at what software am I going to invest in. Okay. And then cost also depends on development. So you got, you know, if you're going to have the developer come in here and do all the development, how much does that cost? So there's 2 things you could do: with development cost, and you could do what's called the service cost. The service model is taking off so fast right now. That's what everybody's leaning towards. Because the development, when you develop, there's just so many hurdles that you do when you don't know really when you know what you need to do, and you get all the stuff that you need, but you really don't know how to put it all together. You try to get someone that thinks they know how to do it and do all these processes, but never been through this, don't know all the what ifs, don't know all the. So now they're like, we're coming in like, hey, we want you to service us. Do it. Tell us what software to use. You know, how much it's going to cost to do the maintenance support on the back end, to train my team, to keep my team, whatever the case may be. So I think the service model is probably the best route to go, because now you have a team to support you. If anything ever happens, you have someone to support you.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it is custom. The way we look at it is more of, you know, the complexity of the process. So I'll give an example. Like for us, we did one for an invoice processing for a retail company, and it took us from end to end. They have over 150 vendors, but there was 80% of 10 of the vendors, or 12 of their vendors was 80% of their work. So we automated those 12 first. We did those 12 first in the first 30 days.
Wow.
So we took 80% of their work away right away. Now they had 100 and some vendors that we had to work on to get these other ones in there. That took like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Right. But we just little by little, we start adding those, took that big load off them right away. That helped them. I mean, that went from 3.5 full employees to 1 to one part-time employee. So
Wow.
3.5 employees to have part-time employee. And those employees were able to move on to other areas, had been in there, know the culture of the company, knew what to do. So now they got that off their plate, they could do other things. Okay. In that process alone, I think runs them $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And they can add more
Wow.
vendors. And they can add more vendors, right? And they can, if the process change or a new vendor or a new invoice comes, all that's covered within that service model. So the ROI on them was 300 and some % off the bat, right? So those are the things that you look at, and before we go into development stages, you are going to pretty much already know the ROI, because you're gonna know what can be developed, how much of that process can be automated, and you can start saying, okay, we can break it down for you. You spend about 5 minutes here, you spend about 10 minutes here, you spend about 20 minutes here. It all adds up to 40 minutes. If you do that 10 times, that's 3 hours a day or whatever the case may be, a week. You're going to save this much. You're going to spend this much on labor costs, and your cost is this. That's a difference of me spending manually $1,500 to now it's $500, so whatever the case may be. So you'll be able to do that even before the development, and that's what's great about the service model.
Yeah. So with the service model, I'm assuming you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a cloud-based kind of thing. So you don't have the hardware that you got to invest in and that sort of things. Like, hey, this is our problem. This is what we want to resolve. They work with you. You figure out what can be done. What's the savings going to mean? In that case, it was 2.5 people or something like that, right? Oh, all right. People that are going to be able to move to something else. Does that make you excited? Yeah, we're chomping at the bit to get redeployed into these other areas. I mean, that's a pretty compelling case. And to be able to go, and I think your 80-20 rule, I mean, that just makes it really simple and easy for all of us to understand. I also think it's interesting that you're an entrepreneur like our audience and not necessarily a technology or software geek. Yeah, we do have some of those clients as well, but the bulk of our clients are very good in their industry and their service model, but they aren't great in accounting and understanding their numbers. They may not be great in programming and automating processes either. So that's where, having somebody like you, where you even know, okay, I can begin here. And I think that's the biggest reason we wanted to bring you on is, let's demystify this thing while we're talking about AI, Chat GPT, and let's bring it downstream a little bit into, besides getting dad jokes for Jack Santinello on Chat GPT, what can we do with this cool technology?
I've been blessed to been surround myself with smart people, right? And so everything I've learned was from smart people, and those people introduced me to smart people, and those people are smart people. So, being able to be part of that circle and just be able to speak my mind and get ideas of how to put this puzzle together in layman's terms, is and now I get to do it on a regular basis because I know, that I'm part of that network. It's fun because as someone in the entrepreneur lifestyle, but doesn't have that tech background, and I'm on the borderline of a baby boomer. Okay, so I was raised with the baby boomer lifestyle, so crossing over from that wasn't easy. I mean, I was a sales guy that would knock the doors back in the day, right? That's where I used to come from.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to see where we're at right now and have the support and being able to say, oh, there's a bunch of people like me out there that just have an idea, are good at what they do, but they hate doing all this other stuff. I can't stand finances. I'm worse at finances. Oh, I can automate that? Show me how.
Yeah.
Oh, I can get that over to my account without me touching it. Show me how. Like, okay, so that became like, okay, I'm good there. So if that's something that can be impactful for other entrepreneurs without having to have that technical background and make it very easy, it becomes easy to have that conversation now. I can have a conversation with someone can have a conversation like, okay, now I know how to have automation conversation. I know how to do this process now. I don't have to think like I know the software, all these different, things that this technology. So it's made it very easy to slide into the technology and automation world.
Jack Santinello has raised his hand.
Yes, so I'm curious and it may be too early for this to occur naturally, but are you seeing competitors, industry competitors getting together to put together, the processes and things like that? So for example, you see a lot of times pharmaceutical companies that are competitors that will come together for the betterment of society and then jointly produce something. And then, they are able to sell it together and they have, revenue share and that kind of thing. But are you seeing anything like that yet in order to, take some common automation efficiencies, develop those, and then, it's okay. Let's say I'm making this up, the petroleum industry. So you have Chevron and Shell getting together and BP and saying, okay, we're going to automate something. And then, but they're selling their own brands, at the end of the day. And I don't know if it's not a dad theory or Jack theory. This is something that I was told, that petroleum is petroleum. And it's at the end that each company puts their spin on whatever it is, the additives and everything else. So I guess what I'm asking about is collaboration within this process in order to get to something that then can be further developed or used specifically for a particular business or an industry.
Great question. That's a great question. I've never been asked that question. And what's crazy enough is that to answer your question, yes, it's happening. It's already there, right? And we talk about it, and we're sort of intrigued by some of the things that we're having conversations about, that we're seeing. We're actually, if I go into much detail yet, but there is a couple of software programs that our competitors that are working together to because they found an ideal bottleneck that are holding them both up. But it's going to impact other software companies like them as well. So absolutely, we see it happening. And that's the great thing about it. You start seeing more of this. There's so much, the AI is such good, especially now you've seen the battle rap, you've seen all these videos come up about certain things happening and AI and automation and all that. From the back end, it's just really making a huge, major impact in a positive way. And things like this is going to really make a difference on with companies moving forward. So yeah, absolutely, we see it.
Yeah, and Wilton, we just had a question that came in, and maybe in the course of answering the question I'm about to ask you, you could sort of get to the question that Rob poses for us, which is, will RPA or automation take people's jobs? So keep that in the back of your mind. We had a conversation about helping us out, probably about a month ago, and it's the middle of tax season, so I did not think about it a whole lot. But as we're sitting here talking, I'm starting to think about, what do our people really do? It's like, Gary gives me a W-2 to input into a tax software. And yes, that is automated, like machine reads it, puts it into the tax software. But at some level, we're still having to look for transposition errors, that happen with the data entry piece. And then someone actually has to print the tax return and put it in the directory and let Gary know that it's ready to go. So it's like, as my brain's been kind of noodling, I'm like, well, holy crap, I could take like 2 minutes of that guy's function, 1 minute of Sally's function, and you multiply that across 5,000 tax returns. It's like, that crap could kind of start adding up a little bit. So, and then you intrigue me with and it's $1,600 a month. So kind of give us an idea of, okay, look, it's not like at BGW, we wouldn't actually be eliminating jobs. We would be redeploying resources that we already have, because the resources are scarce. So as we, in other words, like, there, even if I wanted to find people, I'm competing against the IRS and those 87,000 jobs. So it's like, you just heard my tirade at the beginning about like, look, I can't even get, I can't even go to a golf tournament that I sponsored and get a freaking student to play golf with me. So this isn't about job elimination. This is called, you know, I don't even have the body to give the job to. So I need to, you know, I gotta do something different. So help me out a little bit with the you know, kind of the, you know, if I said, all right, look, what could 40 grand buy me a year in terms of ROI, you know, just based on your kind of experience in terms of like salary dollars that I won't have to spend because I can redeploy those resources. What is that? You know, I know you can't be held anything, but
No,
you know, I say that
don't
too.
hold
It's
me.
like, yeah, but we're really going to fine you 10
that's,
times what our fee is.
no,
So
that's great. And, you know, that is a very broad question, but I can't give you an example. Okay. Just say like you have $50,000 a year worth of RPA service, right? You're probably saving at least $250,000 worth of manual processes.
yeah,
At least.
I got it. And to Rob's point, you know, I mean, do you see people eliminating jobs with this, or do you see them more, or is it more we're just redeploying what we got? Like what do you think is more common?
That's a great question. Before I answer that one, this one, let's just say that 50,000 too, that's saving already $250,000. That 50,000 can handle more volume. Remember that. Bots can handle more volume. So, and you don't have to add more bodies to add more volume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scalability.
Yes. So that's important. To answer your second question, that's a great question. We get that all the time. And I had a hard time answering this at first. And I remember talking to a friend of mine because he had a property management company. He's like, hey, we automate these processes, that means they're going to be out of a job. I said, no, you know what? I said, you're the business owner. What are the things that you want to do that you wish you could hire people to do? Because they already know your business. They know how your business works. They know your culture. They know you. They know the character. They know your clients. They know everybody already. And he's like, well, we have to get our website back up. We have to start be out of our properties more, take more pictures, do more videos, gotta do this, start doing that. She has a personality for that. They just start figuring out. And then you start asking them, if you didn't have to do this, what would you do? They start doing this. If I got you an assistant, what would you do? I would do this, do that. So you start asking them. And when that happened, we brought in automation. It was an easy transition. So that happened. But what I realized is that this is going to happen regardless. It's going to happen regardless. But companies can't grow without people. People are the creativity behind the growth of a company. So whether it's talking to customers, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whatever, you need people. The back end of the company, you don't need people to run the motor. You need automation to do that. So it's not going to replace jobs, especially the only jobs that we're seeing replaced are the real enterprise, the Fortune 500, because those are more, yeah, you know what, we don't need it. We just have all this automation, we don't need it. But as the smaller businesses that we're working with, the ones that work with that 150 million even, or 200 million, or even, of course, lower than that, they're looking to scale, they're looking to grow, and they're looking to build their culture. So we don't see any jobs going away at that level. If they're trying to downsize or maintain or sell it off or whatever the case may be, maybe, but we haven't run into that at all. So what we see is just see a transition from one position to another, a mindset transition as well. And so it's happening. It's happening. And we haven't run into too many problems once they see the process going, actually happening and being done, being automated.
Yeah, I could see that, Wilton, because if you think about like a large Fortune 500 company, using the invoicing example that you talked about, I mean, they could have a whole department that your one job is to do the data entry on this paper invoice, and that is your only job. Like that would make sense to me, that if I automated that, well, that person's job, just got eliminated. But in our world, the person entering in the invoice, that might be like 1/10 of their total job functionality. And there's 5 things that I wish they could do that they're like, look, boss, man, I'm just too busy, to
Right.
be able to do it. It's like, so it's just not, it's not a priority, but it can be
Right.
tremendously valuable. So I can see where that would make sense.
And
Something
we've done that.
Go ahead.
We've done that where when we talk to businesses, we're like, what are the things that you wish you can do? We ask them, if you had an assistant, what are the things that you wish you can do? Start naming them. How can you help this company grow? We start asking those, what would you do to make an impact on here so the light can shine on you once in a while? You start asking questions like that, and all of a sudden you start getting all these different answers. And then say, okay, well, let's see what we can contemplate to help you get there. And we start finding out what they do. So, and that's when we get a lot of buy-in.
I like what you said and what Atul said last week. So Atul said, you got to have a human in the loop. So he was talking specifically about ChatGPT and all the automation and all the AI stuff. Without a human in the loop, you got problems because then it starts running amok. It could run amok. But you said, automation is the motor, people are the drivers, and Rob kind of chimed back in to confirm that. And I think that is the way you look at it. Automation is the motor, but you've got to have a driver. You got to have somebody.
You have to have control.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in automation sets you up for that. It sets you up for 100% control, because at the end of the day, it takes your mental and your physical focus off ever having to think about that process again. Like, it doesn't have to register in your mind anymore because it's totally off radar. Right.
Hey,
So
fun side fact about that, Jack, ChatGPT did pass the bar but failed the CPA exam.
Oh,
I'm just saying, like his
oh,
statement.
Oh,
Oh boy,
throwdown.
them might be fighting words. I'm not sure.
What's funny is I've been doing ChatGPT a little bit. I've been messing with it a little bit, but I haven't really. I know the functions because I've been part of the conversation. I've been hearing conversations and seeing things, but I haven't really put a whole lot of time and effort into doing it. We've just been so locked in on RPA. It's just been, but I'm hearing the conversations about it. So, I'm excited to dip into a little bit more here later on when I have time.
Wilton, let me ask you this. So now that you meant, we're kind of talking about ChatGPT, could you, and maybe you don't know enough about it yet, but a mental Venn diagram of what are the commonalities between the two. And I think, as Gary just said, humans are in that middle crossover section. But what would you say if you were to say, okay, one or the other, and then where is the crossover of those two ovals? Could you paint a mental picture?
ChatGPT and RPA?
Yes.
GPT is it's more artificial intelligence. It recognize it. ChatGPT has memory of, I don't know what it is, of everything in the world, right? So whatever you type or whatever you do, it can recognize it real quick, right? That's artificial intelligence. That's machine learning at its highest, whatever the case may be, right? Where RPA is real basic. It's show me the rules and I'll automate it for you. But you have to show it to me. I won't divvy off that at all. If you tell me that, this car is red, but all you showed me was blue, I'm gonna come back and tell you it's not red. You better correct me on that and put that in there. So it has to always be maturing by human. You want to improve, you want to do better. Every time it makes a mistake, or every time a new logic gets missed or needs to be put in, the bot has to realize that. ChatGPT, you don't have to. You can put in your own logic, it'll switch it all up for you and do everything for you and make it sound better, make it look better, whatever it may be, right? Because it has all these different it has artificial intelligence to sort of make it come across, you know.
Okay, because what was interesting in the conversation last week, it seemed that even with Chat GPT, it seemed like there was a incubation area similar to what we're talking about automation, where you're setting up the rules and the boundaries, and you're setting up so that way then you can kind of cut it loose into generally to start thinking. I don't want to say thinking on its own, because then I chills of Terminator and everything else just kind of go through my body. But, you know, to be able to do what it was intended to do, which was to, you know, be creative and do all these other things. But within it, my understanding from last week is, yeah, there are a set of rules. We just have to tell them what the set of rules are. But once those rules are established, that's the rules that it runs by. It's not going to say, well, I don't like that rule, so I'm going to change the rule, kind of thing. So it sounds like that maybe that is kind of the part of the crossover, which is, you know, it seems like Chat GPT is, well, I should say that the automation is a portion of Chat GPT. But I want to make sure I'm not misstating that, because it seems like that's where the interrelation is, that, you know, you have that you're setting up the rules. Is it blue? Is it red? Kind of thing. And then, but you're maybe a more mature version of automation. And again, I don't want to be derogative towards Chat GPT either. Not that anybody cares my opinion of that, but, you know, so, well, what do you think? I mean, is that kind of framing it kind of correctly, do you think, or am I way off?
No, I think you are. I think you're framing it kind of correctly. I think, you know, for me personally, I have to do more, you know, more of my research and more of my love into ChatGPT itself. But you're pretty much down the right path. I think there's still a lot of work, a lot of investigation needs to go into how far this can really can go. I do think that ChatGPT is more for the consumer user, is more of, you know, for anybody, whereas RPA is directly for the business, right? Directly for the business user. And so I think that's what separates the two for sure.
Yeah, I think what I liked what you said earlier on, Wilton, was think of it as business process automation, where you are, instead of like Chat GPT, hey, write me a funny song that has a 50s genre with a calypso beat. Okay, it does that. But you can't do that with business process automation. Hey, make me a process that does this and this and this. You have to actually, okay, if you want to do that, but then let's look at what are the processes that we're actually using right now, document those processes so that they are repeatable and followable, because humans are doing that already. Do this, go to this file and that, you know, folder, and then bring it in here, input into this line, repeat, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you can train a human to do that, you can train and write the logic for the computer to automatically do that and be able to do it exponentially faster and more efficient and not transpose numbers, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, what's great about RPA, and this is one of the reasons why I love how fast it can be implemented, is when you talk to a client, the process is already built. They're already doing it, you know? And for us, we do two things. We used to go in there and say, okay, let's do process improvement and develop it. Now we said, let's develop it and do process improvement, because all we're gonna do is take what they've already built, their logic they've already done, and build on it. If there's ways that we can improve it along the way that's going to simplify it, of course we're going to put our input, but let's get it launched right away. The communication between the client and our team is where the speed or the delays happen, because that information gathering. The development's easy because it's already pretty much mapped out for us. The information gathering is the important part. Once we get that, and once it's already mapped out, it can be built quick. We built processes that people have been doing for years, and we built it in a couple of weeks, a week or two, and I'm like, whoa, I'm blown away. But the communication with their employees, with their team, was just they would give us the information, we would build it, do. They wanted it built right away. So if he wants to build it in 2 weeks, that's what we need. And they stay with the game plan, and sure enough. So the communication is important because the logic's already built. That's why it's so fun to do RPA, because it's like it's not re-engineering everything. It's just, turning a 1-bedroom house into a 5-bedroom house, basically.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point that I think is probably critical to success in implementation, and that is buy-in from the team, cooperation between your team and their team. So walk us through, because we just have a couple minutes. If somebody is interested in doing this, how do they start with you guys? Like, briefly, like, here's the process. If you identify something, here's how we do it.
Well, two things. If you identify a process, we already have what's called a design questionnaire. We send you a design questionnaire to you. You fill it out. It gives us an idea of what that process looks like. So we'll have use cases, we'll have some data, we'll have an idea. We can sort of walk through that process so you get an idea like, oh, okay, this can be a process I want to automate. Or you can have an idea like, okay, I see it, but I have another process I want to automate. If you still don't have an idea of what RPA is, you're still trying to wrap it around your head, we have a discovery call. We get a discovery call. We'll talk to you, tell us what industry you're in. We'll share some use cases with you, break it down to you what we do, and sort of map it out. Once you get to a design call and everything looks good, you want to move forward. All we do is we map out the whole process for you. Map out the whole process for you. We meet again. We show you what it looks like, how much time you're saving, what your ROI looks like, the whole bit. And if you say, yeah, I like it, you'll know exactly what the cost would be to build it out. And then we'll do what's called a POC. So through the whole process, a big part of that bottleneck during that process, let's say, is invoice processing, getting the invoices from the PDF into our software, right? That's the headache. We'll do that as a POC. So we'll get a couple of vendors of yours, we'll do that as a POC, we'll show you how it looks. Oh, it looks great. I like it. Let's go ahead and build out the rest of it out. And the POC is running already, that part's running, and we'll just build out the rest of the process for you.
Here's a question that just came in from Bruce. Does the process include control measures and a productivity audit trail? Are there red flags and milestones in the automation to prevent it from going off the rails? Great question.
This is a really good question. Yes, there's an audit trail. You'll be able to tell when it's working, when it's not working, the whole bit. The bots in your environment, okay, so you control that total. There's no security risk, because it's almost like you hire an employee, right? They log into their own computer. It'll be your VM or your computer, and it'll do the work from that computer directly. All you do is give it the rules. So there's not going to be any leak of any information. If any upgrades or anything happens within that program, the bot will be alerted. Like for us, we'll be alerted the bot didn't happen. We'll write a ticket, see if it's on our side. If it's not on our side, we'll send it out to you saying, hey, something happened on your end. Can you let us in so we can fix it? Yes, let us in. Boom, we fix it and we're out. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then red flags in any automation preventing it from going off the rails.
There's not a whole lot. There's always red flags. Let me sort of back up. Once you have tested it over and over and over, and you have figured out, where all those red flags can happen. We've done thousands of processes. And we've seen a lot of red flags. So going into a process, we've already know where those red flags may happen. But if we identify things that can happen that we haven't encountered, we'll bring those up saying, hey, you know what, this may happen because you left this website open, this may happen. So be aware of that. So we'll sort of give you our input as well, but we haven't run into any issues like that as of yet.
Okay, cool. I know we are at the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of your time as well as everybody else's. Anybody that came on late or had to jump off early, we will put this up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later this afternoon. Wilton, what we can do is make sure that you've got it available. And I think, Jack, we do the same thing for you guys. So I'll just talk with our team, make sure that they reach out to you, Wilton, so that you can put it up on your stuff. But thank you so much for carving out time from Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Right?
Austin, Texas. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. It's always fun talking. It's always good connecting with you, Gary. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is good. Jack, thank you for putting on a tie for us. You can take the tie off and go back into the tank top. So
Perfect. Thank you.
all right. See you guys. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.